The wind howled across the endless Montana plains, carrying the kind of loneliness that could break a man's soul. Caleb Harrow stood on the porch of his weathered ranch house, staring at the horizon where the sun bled red into the earth. At 42, his hands were calloused, his heart scarred, and his hope pinned on a letter from a woman named Eliza, a mail-order bride who promised to arrive by month's end. He'd built this life, loner ranch, they called it, for her, for the family he dreamed of. But the stagecoach that rumbled up his dirt path that crisp October morning didn't carry Eliza. Instead, it spilled out 7 ragged children, their eyes wide with fear and hunger, abandoned by parents who'd vanished into the vast American frontier. Caleb froze, his breath catching as the driver tipped his hat and muttered, "These kids got nowhere else, Harrow. You're all they've got." The coach rattled away, leaving Caleb staring at the children, 3 boys and 4 girls, ranging from a toddler barely able to walk to a lanky teenager with defiant eyes. Their clothes were threadbare, their faces smudged with dirt, and their small hands clutched nothing but each other. He wasn't prepared for this. He'd spent years alone, wrestling cattle and storms, not children. His dream of Eliza, with her promises of love and companionship, felt like a cruel joke as he faced the reality of 7 souls looking to him for salvation. The oldest, a 16-year-old girl named Sarah, stepped forward, her jaw tight. "We don't need your pity, mister. Just a place to sleep." Her voice was sharp, but her trembling hands betrayed her fear. Caleb saw himself in her, hardened by life, afraid to trust. The youngest, a 3-year-old boy named Tommy, clung to Sarah's leg, his wide eyes searching Caleb's face for something he couldn't name. Caleb's heart twisted. He wanted to send them away, to wait for Eliza, but the wind carried their quiet sobs, and he knew he couldn't turn his back. He led them inside, the ranch house creaking under the weight of new life. The place was sparse, a single table, a wood stove, a bed he'd hoped to share with Eliza. The children huddled together, wary, as Caleb rummaged through his pantry. He had little to offer, a sack of flour, some dried beans, a half-empty jar of preserves. That first night, he cooked a meager meal, the silence broken only by the clink of spoons and Tommy's soft whimpers. Sarah watched him like a hawk, her siblings mirroring her distrust. Caleb didn't know how to talk to them, how to bridge the gap between his solitary life and their desperate need. The first challenge came quickly: survival. Winter was closing in, and the ranch wasn't equipped for 8 mouths. Caleb's savings were meager, spent on repairs and supplies for Eliza's arrival. The children were unaccustomed to ranch work, and their small hands fumbled with chores. Sarah tried to help, barking orders at her siblings, but her efforts often ended in arguments. 10-year-old Ben, the second oldest, had a knack for trouble, sneaking off to explore the dangerous cliffs nearby instead of hauling water. The younger ones, twins Lila and Lucy, 8, Nate, 6, Emma, 5, and Tommy, were too small for heavy labor, leaving Caleb overwhelmed. He'd lie awake at night, wondering if Eliza would ever come, and if he could keep these kids alive until she did. The second challenge was trust. The children carried wounds deeper than hunger. Sarah confided one evening, her voice low, that their parents had left them at a train station with a note, "Can't keep em no more." They'd been passed from stranger to stranger until the stagecoach driver, a distant cousin, dumped them on Caleb's doorstep. Their fear of abandonment made them cling to each other, shutting Caleb out. When he tried to teach Ben to mend a fence, the boy snapped, "You're not my pa." When Caleb gently corrected Emma's table manners, she burst into tears, hiding behind Sarah. Caleb felt like an intruder in his own home. His attempts at kindness met with suspicion. Days turned to weeks, and Eliza's letters stopped coming. Caleb's hope dwindled, but the children became his purpose. He taught Sarah to milk the cows, her fierce determination softening as she realized he wasn't giving up on them. Ben's reckless energy found an outlet in repairing the barn, his pride growing with each nail he drove true. The twins, Lila and Lucy, took to tending the chickens, their giggles filling the air when a hen pecked Nate's finger. Emma and Tommy trailed Caleb like shadows, their small hands tugging at his coat for comfort. Slowly, the ranch came alive, not with the love Caleb had imagined with Eliza, but with something rawer, messier, and just as real. The third challenge was external, the townsfolk. Word spread about the loner rancher taking in strays, and not everyone approved. At the general store, whispers followed Caleb. Some called him a fool, others a saint, but most doubted he could handle it. The local preacher, Mr. Grayson, offered to take the children to an orphanage, insisting it was for their own good. Sarah overheard and panicked, gathering her siblings in a tearful huddle, begging Caleb not to send them away. He stood firm, facing Grayson down. "They're mine now," he said, the words surprising even himself. It was the first time he claimed them, not as a burden, but as family. Winter hit hard, testing their fragile bond. A blizzard trapped them inside, the roof leaking, the woodpile dwindling. Caleb worked tirelessly, chopping wood in the biting cold, while Sarah rallied the children to keep the fire going. One night, when Tommy fell ill with a fever, Caleb sat by his side, wiping his brow, fear gnawing at him. Sarah joined him, her tough exterior cracking as she whispered, "He's all I've got left." Caleb took her hand, promising, "He's got me too." Tommy recovered, and in that moment, something shifted. The children began to call him Caleb, not Mister, their voices softer, their eyes warmer. Spring brought renewal. The ranch bloomed with wildflowers, and the children thrived. Ben built a swing for Emma and Tommy, who squealed with delight. Lila and Lucy planted a small garden, their faces beaming with pride when the first sprouts appeared. Sarah took on more responsibility, her leadership easing Caleb's load. He realized he no longer thought of Eliza. The letter he'd pinned his dreams on lay forgotten in a drawer, replaced by the laughter and chaos of 7 children who'd claimed his heart. The final challenge was Caleb's own fear. Could he be enough? He'd never planned to be a father, let alone to 7. Doubts crept in, would the children be better off elsewhere? But one evening, as they sat around the table, sharing a meal they'd all worked to prepare, Sarah raised a glass of milk and said, to Caleb, "Who didn't have to keep us but did." The others joined in, their voices a chorus of gratitude. Caleb's throat tightened, his eyes burning. He wasn't alone anymore, and neither were they. By summer, Loner Ranch was no longer lonely. The children's laughter echoed across the plains, and the townsfolk, once skeptical, brought supplies and offered help. Caleb never heard from Eliza, but he no longer needed her. He'd found his purpose in the 7 children who'd arrived unannounced, teaching him that family isn't just born, it's built, through hardship, trust, and love. As the sun set over the ranch, Caleb stood on the porch, watching Sarah teach Tommy to skip stones in the creek, while Ben chased the twins, their laughter rising like a hymn. He realized the life he'd waited for had come, not in the form he'd expected, but in one far greater. The message was clear: sometimes, the greatest blessings arrive in the most unexpected packages, and the courage to embrace them can transform a lonely heart into a home.